These days, it absolutely goes without saying that there's a lot going on. There is always a lot going on. It is almost impossible to keep up with. And what's fascinating, and by that I mean horrifying, is that everything that's going on is almost all extremely serious. So, we talked about before the difference between recognizing something as a distraction that's meant to knock other things out of the news cycle versus the things we really we need to be paying attention to. And it seems lately that everything is both of those things. We're going to get to much of that. But I did want to take a second because a lot gets lost in the shuffle, right? We have to cover the extremely significant and potentially life altering events of the day, but we often do that at the expense of other things. We often do that at the expense of things that give us hope or make us feel like we are not on the losing end of everything, that could give us some sense of agency or something to hang on to, right? So I wanted to take a second, and we're going to talk about it more with the nerds, but later. But I wanted to take a second to let you know that my very dear friend E. Jean Carroll published her new book today. It's called "Not My Type," which I'll talk about why it's called that later in the show. But the publication of her book today comes on the heels of her having beaten Donald Trump yet again in court. He lost his appeal, and that is also something to celebrate. But what I wanted to focus on, other than the fact that everybody should go out and buy her book, obviously, I've had the honor of reading it ahead of time, and it is brilliant, and it is quintessentially E. Jean as she is herself. But I just want to remind you how extraordinarily lucky we are that there are people like E. Jean Carroll in the world. It isn't simply that she has more courage in her little fingernail than Donald Trump has in his entire body. I mean, that goes without saying, obviously. But this is a woman who has more courage, who has more guts, who is a bigger badass than any elected Republican or, quite frankly, most elected officials in this country. She and her extraordinary attorney, also somebody I consider a friend, Robbie Kaplan, have time and time again shown us how to win against the extraordinarily weak loser that is Donald Trump. So I want to celebrate the publication of her book, but I also want to celebrate the fact that somebody like E. Jean Carroll exists in our world to show us how it's done. Let's dive in. Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's episode of the Nerd Avengers. Joining me are Brian Karam, White House reporter and best-selling author, host of the podcast Just Ask the Question, now celebrating its 7th year on air this month. Also, I wanted to plug Brian's Substack Reporter's Notebook. Check that out. Also, of course, Danielle Moody, host of Get Woke here, Meritro Media, and host of the Danielle Moody Show, and co-host of Democracy-ish on her YouTube channel at Danielle Moody _ Check that out. Become a subscriber. Seriously, get with the program, people. Anyway, I know most of you probably already are subscribers, but spread the word. All right. It's good to see you guys. It feels like it's been a really long time. I don't know why. Maybe because each day feels like several years these days. I don't know.
Yeah.
So, Danielle, just when you thought it was safe, I'm just kidding. It's never safe. But just when you thought we had enough to deal with, Now it looks like Donald is trying to declare war on Iran. Apparently, he thinks he can do that by tweet or troth or whatever these stupid things are called. He actually wrote this on his failing social media site. Quote, "We now have complete and total control of the skies over Iran. Iran had good sky tractors and other defensive equipment and plenty of it, but it doesn't compare to American made, conceived, and manufactured stuff. Nobody does it better than the good old USA," unquote. Danielle, we make good stuff, apparently. So in addition to just like being an embarrassing, pathetic creep, that seems like incendiary rhetoric that should not be disseminated on social media. And it doesn't seem like the most responsible way to go about uh, intervening in what at the moment seems to be a conflict started by Israel against Iran between those two countries. And also, I think if Donald Trump is in charge of things, he should probably just do nothing at all. That would probably be the safest way to go here.
I mean, first, hi, Mary.
Hi.
It has been a long time, and Brian, it has been
Hi.
a long time. It's nice to see your faces. You know, today on Substack, actually, a friend of mine, Robert Jones Jr., posted, a long post about what is happening in Gaza, what's happening in Israel, what's happening in Iran. And he said, what's occurred to me is that we keep waiting for the world to intervene and keep waiting for like the world to do the right thing, and recognizing that we are now the axis of evil. Like
Yeah.
America is spearheading the axis of evil.
Yep.
And I have felt that. I think I have said it probably here and on other shows. And the fact is that is a really devastating, I think, as a person of conscience and as a person that like believes in justice, to understand that our country, as deeply, deeply, severely flawed as it is now like the bully, is now the the leadership of cruelty. And so when we look at this, and I had to like take a beat from Blue Sky earlier today, because it was like post after post after post was Donald Trump's going to side with Netanyahu. He's going to start bombing, the nuclear sites and like all of these things. And I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Like, does he even understand? Can he even grasp the severity of making that kind of decision through your broke down social media platform? The fact that in the middle of the night, he posts on his site and, oh, the people of Tehran, get out of the city. It's like sending a post in the middle of the night to the people of fucking Manhattan and
Yep.
saying that you have to leave. It's 9 million people that live in Tehran. And it is like, I think, millions more that live in the surrounding suburbs. Like his understanding is so fucking lacking, right? Like if you said point to Iran on a map without any of the names, like he's not finding it. And so their understanding of this huge metropolitan city and space, in their minds, I think that it looks like whatever it was fucking Homeland showed us, or like Raiders of the Lost Ark showed us, like all of the stereotypes that have been perpetuated through Hollywood films and movies have shown us about this region. That's not what it looks like.
Right.
You're telling 9 million people to pack up and go. And the traffic that was leaving, like these people just like, they don't know what the fuck is coming, because the man that is in charge of the most powerful military in the world, who clearly has like intellectual cognitive delays and issues, is posting in the middle of the night, and he has a finger on the button.
Right.
So what are
Right.
you supposed to do? Are you supposed to take his posts on Truth Social as a joke? Are you supposed to ignore it and then the next thing you know, like it's nuclear winter. It's just such an absurd, gross, grief struck like place that we find ourselves in this country and the people around the world that are like literally right now in harm's way. But my God, it's yeah, that's a
Yeah.
long way of saying I like God help us because we are in an atrocious place.
Yeah, it's funny. Funny, wrong word. As in ironic and just disturbing that time and time again we are facing unspeakable crises that are unique in our history. I'm thinking of COVID in particular, and now this. And the worst person on the planet is in charge of things. And I mean, it literally couldn't be worse. One of the things that's disturbing about this is that it plays into his nuclear fantasies because let's remember Donald Trump is a nihilist. Let's also remember he is not doing well in all sorts of ways. He's suffering humiliation after humiliation after humiliation. That is not going to make him more restrained and responsible. And Brian, to Danielle's point, he doesn't know anything. So I want to play this clip and then I want to read one of his posts because it almost made my head explode. Because I think it frames this issue in a way I don't hear enough people talking about it. So let's start with this. He was on Air Force One after fleeing from the G7 because he's a coward. And, he'd said he didn't want a ceasefire. So he was asked about it. And then he said stuff that none of which makes sense. So let's just try to see if we can figure out what he was saying.
You just posted right before we took off that you're not leaving because of a ceasefire. Why are you? Can you elaborate?
I'm looking at better than ceasefire. We're not looking for a ceasefire. I didn't say I was looking for a ceasefire. That was Emmanuel. Nice guy. But he doesn't get it right too often. But we're not looking. We're looking for better than a ceasefire.
What specifically is better than a ceasefire? What are you looking for here?
An end. A real end, not a ceasefire. An end.
So something that will be permanent.
Or giving up entirely. That's okay too.
Oh, good. Giving up entirely. And I mean, again, why bother trying to parse his language? But he followed that up with this slide. I mean, sorry, with this whatever it's called, this tweet, in which he said unconditional surrender. So again, we're just supposed to know what that means, just like we were supposed to know when he said get out of Tehran, that he just wanted people to be safe, but he had no insider knowledge. Brian, this is the quote. This is something he posted that I think last night that makes all of this so much worse than it already is. Quote, Iran should have signed the deal I told them to sign. What a shame and waste of human life. Simply stated, Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. I said it over and over again. Everyone should immediately evacuate Tehran. Okay, Iran should not have a nuclear weapon. I agree. Who doesn't agree with that? You know who doesn't agree with that? Donald Trump. Why am I saying that? Because we had something called the JCPOA or the Iran nuclear deal or the Iran deal. And that was under the Barack Obama administration. What did Donald do during his first administration? Oh, and just to be clear, that deal took years of statecraft and diplomacy and negotiating to put in place. That deal made Iran agree that they would not develop nuclear capability. Donald pulled us out of the JCPOA. Therefore, Iran had no incentive, none whatsoever, to adhere to the agreement. So for him of all people to say that he didn't want Iran to have nuclear capabilities makes my head explode.
Well, I'm past that. I'm just trying to pick up the pieces of chaos in a blender. And Danielle, I sure appreciate where you are. I was there 4.5 years ago. I've had enough of this moron. First of all, yeah, thank you for bringing that up, Mary. That's the big point that all the MAGA people want to forget. We had a deal. And Donald Trump scuttled it. Why? Because Donald Trump wanted credit for it. Donald Trump isn't capable of negotiating what was negotiated before because he has no patience, no time. And by the way, nobody on his staff capable of it.
Right.
When he tweeted out unconditional surrender, I was hoping against hope that was an odd way of saying he had resigned. But
oh, no such luck.
I mean, he comes straight from the G7. First of all, if this is so serious, I tweeted a picture from the White House. He was not even in the Oval Office at 1 o'clock this afternoon. He did not get there until about 1:30. If it's so damn serious, why wasn't he there that in the morning? He had flown back to talk to people. Where was he? He also, while at the G7, he touted Putin and China as should be joining the G7, and then lavishly praised Putin. This is continuing chaos in a blender. To your point also, Mary, every day feels like a month. That's how I felt every damn day in the first 4 years of Trump's first administration. This is a president who told us he wants no new wars, yet he is plundering and stumbling right into one, whether he knows it or not. He doesn't know anything, as you said, but even worse, his Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, knows even less. He barely knows how to get a tattoo on. After that, the man is a moron. So right now, the United States, to your point, is, Danielle, and it hurts. And like I said, this is where I was 4.5 years ago. We are the axis of evil.
Yeah.
And the only hope is to speak out against it. And the only hope is that hope against hope, that somebody with common sense prevails. But I don't see any common sense in this administration at any step of the way. This is far different than the first administration. The first administration still had people on staff and people who I could talk to that knew what reality was. There is no one, and I mean none of my contacts at the White House, none of them believe anything except what Donald Trump says to be true. And that, folks, is not only autocratic, authoritarian, but suicidal. Yeah. And unfortunately, as you point out, the man has his thumb or his finger or his big toe or his belly button on the trigger. And by God, if he has an outie, by God, we're all going to suffer with that. I love the face you made.
Sorry, well, I don't want to be thinking about that. So.
Yeah, that's it. The scary part at the end of the day is not how bad it is, but how bad is it going to get?
Yep.
We have 1,313 days left in this administration. We have barely been through 150. And this is where we are.
Jesus Christ, Brian.
Oh, man.
Whoa. We haven't been through 150 yet?
Yeah.
What?
Okay, wait. So I'm not actually 347 years old. I'm just however old I was plus 150 days. I defy you to prove that.
Right.
I was 19 when this started, damn it.
Right? Oh my goodness gracious. Yeah, so listen, I think it is always a mistake to hold out hope that the Republicans are going to come to their senses, because they're as deluded and all in as the people in the executive branch who surround and protect Donald. But allegedly, there is some infighting in the Republican Party. Some of them are speaking out against going to war. Now, the question remains, Danielle, will they take this seriously enough that they won't just hand over their constitutional authority to Donald? Because that seems to be the only thing Republicans in Congress are good at. But I think part of the background for this is the fact that Donald has been, I think both of his campaigns on not engaging in war, focusing on America, stopping the forever conflict, calling Hillary Clinton a warmonger, calling Joe Biden a warmonger, and now here we are. So this is Lindsey Graham on Fox addressing, I know, fun times, addressing the infighting in his party.
What a joy to hear from him.
Well, Senator, you do have opposition within your own party to all of this. Marjorie Taylor Greene posting this on X on Sunday.
You could put them in a phone booth. You could put them in a phone booth. Those Republicans who are opposed to supporting Israel against Iran, you could literally put in a phone booth.
Well, and phone books come in different sizes too. There's
phone
the phone book. Phone booth. I'm sorry, I thought you said a phone book.
Phone booth.
Well, phone booths are about the same size, although you'd be hard pressed to find one.
No, I'm not worried about Republicans.
But
Republicans are with Israel.
Let me just, if I could, put this out. Marjorie Taylor Greene says anyone slobbering for the U.S. to become fully involved in the Israel-Iran war is not America First or MAGA. Wishing for murder of innocent people is disgusting. We are sick and tired of foreign wars, all of them. Yeah, take a look at this graphic. I don't know if you can see this graphic, Senator, but let me put this out there for the audience to see. It's believed that left to their own devices, without any kind of degradation, within 2 to 3 days, Iran could develop one weapon. Within a month, this is breeding like rabbits. Within a month, they have 11 weapons. Within 5 months, they have 22 weapons. And a lot of people believe that a regime like the Iranian one, the more weapons you have, the more likely you are to use them.
Yeah, I mean, I like Marjorie, but be honest with you, she doesn't understand the threat, in my view. If you don't understand that Iran, a religious theocracy, religious Nazis, would use a nuclear weapon to kill all the Jews, you don't listen to what they say. They're a threat to us. They're a threat to the state of Israel. It is not in the world's interest to give this religious fanatic a nuclear weapon.
Says the guy who belongs to a party of so-called religious Nazis, and also no mention at all of the Iran nuclear deal, which was scrapped by their guy. And then, of course, Danielle, spokeswoman for the State Department, Tammy Bruce, who is quite something. She tried to brief us on the conflict, and when asked by media to what we should expect, she gave one of those answers that just helps us so much understand the complexities of the issue. Check this out.
U.S. government and the Israeli government on the same page when it comes to the intelligence about Iran's nuclear weapons?
That is a question for the White House and perhaps the NSC. That's not something I can answer here. Nadia.
Have you heard from the Iranians signaling interest in continuing discussions?
That is not something that I can speak to.
She's a spokesperson for the Department of Defense. Do these people not communicate? Do we even know who's in charge? And to give these like pat answers, like, that have no understanding of the actual conflict or what's at stake, like just this knee jerk. Well, anybody who doesn't support Israel, like, is that really? That's just the criterion right now.
Yes. And you know what I'm saying? And frankly, it has been the criteria of both parties for decades upon decades upon decades without any real thoughtfulness around what kind of government Israel has, what kind of regime has been in place, etc. And I just think it's funny because I had to just Google just now. As Lindsey Graham was being asked, and I'm thinking to myself, do I have to strap on ice skates to ski through hell right now? Because I agreed with Marjorie Taylor Greene's post on X, and
That's really disturbing.
Like I feel like, am I high right now? Like, what is happening when I can?
If you are, that's the wrong acid, baby.
Right? Because it is. Because
find something better.
What's happening? But I had to Google to see how many nuclear warheads does Donald Trump have at his disposal right now?
Oh, thousands. Yeah.
Oh. Well, let me tell you.
Yeah,
it is evidently 5,000.
Yes.
177.
Mm-hmm.
Down from the high of about 10,000.
177.
Just 5,177 too many.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking to myself, so as Lindsey Graham ends his rant with, we don't want this regime to have, their hands on these kind of weapons. And I'm thinking to myself, I don't want Donald Trump to have his hands on over 5,100 of them. A man that can't put together a coherent post on his broke down social media platform has access to 5,177 warheads. And on top of that, why can't these people provide any transparency into what's happening? Because let's be real, Mary, they don't have a fucking clue. Right? Because on Monday, Donald Trump tells him, we're not going to go, we're not going to support, we're going to stand back in a defensive posture. Well, he doesn't say that, but you know what I'm saying. We're going to stand back in a defensive posture from what is happening between Israel and Iran. But then on Wednesday, in the middle of the night, he pounds a Coke and then says, well, everybody should evacuate because I'm getting really antsy and excited about the possibility of putting my finger on the button that I haven't done yet. It's the one thing he hasn't done to destroy the world yet, but everything else has been incremental. So I feel like all he has are these people around him that are like, yeah, boss, do it. Like, there's no one that, to Brian's point, I never felt like we were headed to World War III. I'll be honest. World War III in the first regime. I actually didn't feel like America was, I felt like America was flirting with being a part of the axis of evil and flirting with a lot of things, but I didn't think that we were there. So now fast forward, we're here, we are the cog, right? That everything is bouncing off of. And I think to myself, there is not one person in any situation room, in any space that is going to go against Donald Trump. I mean, think about that cabinet briefing that we saw on television with them all sitting there with their red MAGA hats in front of him, clapping like seals, and just like, as Waj always says, offering verbal fellatio up and down the fucking row. None of them, no one there is going to say, you know what? I don't think that we should get involved with Iran. This is not our fucking fight. Like, this is going to escalate really quickly. Let's just let fucking Netanyahu hang himself because he can't battle all of these things on a front, destroying and genocide over here and then fighting with Syria and bombing Lebanon. He can't do it all. He's going to destroy himself and the country. Let him do that without your involvement, without your... No one is there to say that.
Yeah, your point.
No, and just really quickly, Brian, by the same token, you'd say that about America.
Yeah, well,
because we need to distinguish, and people don't do this with Iran, but the people of Iran really wanted to join the West, like in some ways, like they were the young people.
Well, they were there until 53.
Were progressive. Yeah, I mean, they wanted to stay there. They were progressive and they were forward-thinking, and they did not want a religious theocracy, and they did not want the horrific misogyny and the horrific policies in place. It's the government. Same thing with Israel. It is not the Israeli people. It is the corrupt war criminal and mass murderer Benjamin Netanyahu. It is not most of the American people. It is the mass murderer and corrupt criminal Donald Trump. So that's like, Brian, that changes the calculation. The problem, however, is that because of the governments in place, people who do not support them, the people who really do want change for the better, are going to suffer. And that's why, like I've been saying for a long time, the best way out of this, I think, for the world is to box us out, isolate us, and diminish our power. I just sort of change the subject.
I think we're doing that ourselves.
Yeah, right. But that's like, to Danielle's point, let Netanyahu hang himself by his own petard, right?
Yeah. Netanyahu is Donald Trump to the extreme. He's doing what he's doing because he doesn't want to go to prison.
Obviously.
Yeah. Well, he's afraid of going to prison. But I want to remind everyone how serious this actually is. I covered defense for many years. I have many friends or sources inside the Defense Department. They game these things out. And this is one of the games that they play. Ever seen the movie War Games? Kind of like that. They game out how these things go. And the final confrontation between East and West, they've gamed it out starting in the Middle East, starting in Ukraine. But the Middle Eastern conflict, which would expand, would include dropping a nuclear bomb on Israel or on Iran. And that's where we're at, folks. And to remind you of how serious that is, just go and see a movie called The Day After, 1983 telemovie that told in very blunt detail what would happen. And it was after that, by the way, after that production aired on, I think it was ABC, Ted Koppel had a special nightline where Carl Sagan sat in and said, imagine two people in a room full of explosives, describing the Soviet Union at that time and the United States, filled with explosives and up to their necks in gas. Each one of them has a match daring the other. And he said, what would happen if this occurs is the extinction of the human species. And it was during that broadcast that he coined the term nuclear winter to describe what would occur afterwards. We're staring into the abyss with Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth on the button.
Oh,
and
my God.
If that doesn't give you cause for concern, please continue taking whatever hallucinogens Marjorie Taylor Greene is taking, because we've got to deal with this in real time. The fundamental problem that the United States faces at this moment in history is not just, being boxed in, not just being ignored, but it's the fact that we can bring so much destruction at the touch of a button.
Yep.
And we are led by insane people for insane causes. And the only hope that you have is that the oligarchs want to keep making money, so maybe they won't blow it up. But then again, they all have underground bunkers, so what do they care? At the end of the day, this is the greatest existential threat of my lifetime. I've been covering presidents since Reagan. We were all afraid of Ronald Reagan and what he would do, and what he would do as far as pushing a button. But that pales in comparison to what is actually in charge of the United States right now. And it's frightening in its scope.
Yeah, because there's literally nobody, as you mentioned earlier, Brian, nobody in Donald's inner circle, in his outer circle, in his entire executive branch that is going to do anything to
They're not even in their office today, Mary. In the White House, there's no one in the press office, nobody there. This is the most serious event of our lifetime, and they're not even there.
I laugh because I am just so stunned. I'm just so stunned at this moment.
Well, yeah, it's stunning. I think it's the same. It's this sort of a worse version of the same thing. No reason we shouldn't be surprised, but we should be shocked because
you warned us.
We saw it. Well, we all did. We've all been talking about this for a long time, and of course, this is the end result of letting somebody like that have unfettered power. Thank you, corrupt, illegitimate supermajority of the Supreme Court. Thank you, fascist Republican Party. Thank you, 74 million people who don't pay enough attention to think that it's a bad idea to have fascists in charge of everything. Well done. So, I think I want to talk briefly about the G7, simply because I think it actually gave me a little bit of hope that maybe other world leaders are starting to get it. Donald lasted less than a day because he kept humiliating himself. And I think the thing that was most humiliating is how little the other leaders cared about anything he had to say. Nobody's deferential to him anymore. Literally nobody cares what he had to say. He kept getting interrupted. Carney, Prime Minister of Canada, while Donald was given the free rein by the media to lie about what's going on here vis-a-vis immigration, etc. Carney's like, not what we're here for. I'm taking over. Go away. He had a bunch of clashes with Macron. He actually publicity-seeking President Emmanuel Macron of France mistakenly said that I left the G7 summit in Canada to go back to D.C. to work on a ceasefire between Israel and Iran. Wrong. He has no idea why I'm now on my way to Washington, but it certainly has nothing to do with a ceasefire. Much bigger than that, whether purposely or not. Emmanuel always gets it wrong. Stay tuned, unquote. Again, Danielle, he says these things. It's like he's always looking in a mirror. He kept mixing up the EU and the UK. And this to me was, I know this is not that big a deal, but I kind of feel like this clip I'm about to show is sort of the epitome of what is left of the rotting hulk of Donald Trump.
The UK, and we just signed a document. This is, sorry about that. This is it.
Very important document.
A little windy out here. Give me that. We just signed it, and it's done. And so we have our trade agreement with the European Union. And it's a fair deal for both.
There was no wind, first of all. And secondly, Donald, nobody cares about the fact that you can sign your name so nicely.
Without an auto pin. I didn't use an auto pin. I'm great.
Yeah. So Danielle, like brave Sir Robin, he ran away because he just couldn't handle it. And now, I guess again, that it's being held hostage by somebody with such a fragile ego, who's so terrified of being humiliated and who continues to be humiliated, after the debacle of the obscene military parade on Saturday and this thing at the G7. And I think Netanyahu is just like not paying any attention to him. And who knows what Vladimir Putin's doing behind the scenes. We know they've been talking. So Danielle, we do have to worry about that, though, because the more humiliated he gets, the more of the stronger he needs to seem. And for Donald, that is always lashing out and putting people in harm's way.
I mean, that's why, you saw the reaction post, his humiliating sham puny military party was, basically declaring war on blue cities and blue states, right? Like, because he is so fragile that we know, and this is honestly, this is the thing that scares me. This is the thing that is keeping me up at night, is that Donald Trump's reaction to everything is an escalation, because it just shows how small he is. The smaller he feels, the bigger the stunts, right? And so here we have now where world leaders are literally whispering like high school kids in front of him, and rolling their eyes and just being utterly disgusted with him, with America, with the fact that, we can't be trusted, right? Like, that you have to count America out. And to Brian's point that he made, he's like, America's done it to itself, right? Like, my only hope
totally
with the No King protests, the massive protests from the weekend, is to show the rest of the world that we're not all idiots. Right? Like, honestly, it's our only way.
True.
Like, we're not all attending the G7 summit. Like, we're not all being interviewed on CNN and MSNBC about our thoughts, and BBC. No. And so for the world to see America out in the streets in that kind of force is to say, oh, you are a fucking clown, and a majority of the people of this country actually don't agree with you and are not on your side, right? Like, we need that deep distinction, because I mean, the little that Donald Trump knows is terrifying. Right? Like, he knows so little. And what gets me, it's not even the lack of knowledge, but it's the lack of curiosity. Right? Like, you have no desire whatsoever to be any better, to know any more than whatever Crayola fucking coloring book, that you get in your daily briefing. It's shocking to me.
Yeah, Danielle, I'm so glad you said that, because people don't make the distinction between being ignorant or suffering from the Dunning-Kruger effect, which is true of Donald. He's ignorant and he thinks he's smart. Not. But the thing, in my view, and I totally agree with what you just said, that makes him the most dangerous is his lack of intellectual curiosity.
Yep.
He actually thinks he knows everything, and there's no need for him to know more or be better. And it is so alarming because that means there's literally nobody on the planet who can tell him anything that will change his mind, because he knows that I know more than the generals.
And to your point, not only is that, but there's no one there in the White House who, if they could, would.
No,
That's
exactly.
the
And we had that the first time around. There were people, and they failed time and time again. So because Danielle queued this up perfectly, I just want to take a look at a montage we put together from the protests around the country. And again, I think there were over 4 to 6 million people showed up for these. More.
It was a record.
Bigger. So that was a record. So that was great. And they were everywhere. I think there were in excess of 1,800 of them, from tiny towns to huge cities. So let's look at the montage. Good job, guys. Again, we got to keep this up. We have to keep this up. All right. I want to end where I started, talking about E. Jean Carroll and her new book, Not My Type. Just as a reminder, why did she take Donald Trump to court? And let's not forget this. And people forget this all the time. It makes me crazy. She took him to court because he defamed her. He defamed her. He defamed her by saying she was lying about his having sexually assaulted her. So 2 separate juries found him liable for defamation, because these were civil cases, and found him liable for sexual assault. It's in New York State, it's called sexual abuse. Judge Kaplan, who presided over both cases, said that it was, to all intents and purposes, rape. Donald Trump was found liable in a court of law by a jury of his peers. Sorry, jurors, I don't mean to suggest that you're his peer, but you know what I'm saying. It's just legal language. Found him liable for raping a woman who had the courage to do what no elected Republican is capable of: standing up, speaking truth to power. So again, we owe E. Jean Carroll a debt of gratitude. And again, of course, because he's Donald Trump, he appealed. The appeal was rejected by the New York State Court of Appeals. So as far as I'm aware, she won. Period. End of story. This book is about all of the things she experienced, having to face the most powerful person on the planet and his extremely dangerous cult followers. Because you want to talk about death threats? Yeah, you can imagine what E. Jean Carroll had to go through. So please get this book. If anybody has anything to say, please go for it.
Well, I will pop in and say that I love this woman. She beat Trump in court twice, 2 different cases, and on appeals for a grand total of 4 times. And I only got to beat him in court 3 times, so I'm jealous. What I find uplifting about this is that, you can make a difference. And referring to what you said about the protesters, the millions, I had putting these 2 together. I know it sounds odd, but if those protesters would take the time, if you look at them, 46 million people, how many of them didn't vote? If they would take the time to have voted, they would not have faced what we're facing. We wouldn't be facing what we're facing now. And if you need someone to look up to for any type of guidance in that situation, look to what one woman did by herself, well, with attorneys, against Donald Trump. And that, to me, should be all the guidance, all the hope, all the courage that you need to summon. And that is, please look at what that woman went through. And please, when you get a chance to vote, get your fat rump off your couch and go vote. And more than that, Be involved in phone calls, walk neighborhoods and knock on doors. Be willing to do what it takes to work at precincts and be precinct captains, volunteer, get involved. If one woman can do this, imagine what a 90 or 100 million voters could do. Folks, that should be your courage.
Yeah,
And your
Danielle?
hope.
Yeah, I just, I echo what Brian said, and I think that Eugeni's like persistence and her dedication to truth and justice is so admirable. I honestly, I cannot even fathom what it has been like to go up against the president of the United States, then he's former president, and then back to being president again. This man that is a monster, right? And the fact that somebody had just put up in the chat, I can't believe that people willingly voted for an adjudicated rapist is just, it is honestly it's beyond, it's so beyond. And it just reminds me consistently how little we think of women in this country, how little women matter in this country. Because if you think about the men that should not be in the positions that they're in, Kavanaugh,
all of them in that administration, every last one of them.
Yeah, not one person inside of the cabinet of this current administration. Hegseth. You just think about all of these people that if we actually gave a damn about women and the treatment of women and violence against women, then that Donald Trump would have never been president the first time, let alone a second time. So for her commitment and persistence and discipline over these years, everyone buy her book and just salute her.
Absolutely. All right. I just want to thank everybody on YouTube who's watching, everybody live streaming on Twitter and my Substack, The Goodness. To all of our new members, don't forget we have paid YouTube memberships now, so check those out on the homepage on YouTube. All of our super stickers, everybody's giving us gifts. You guys are amazing. We appreciate you so much. To our fantastic moderators, to the amazing Mary Trump Media team, and of course to my awesome Nerd Avengers, Danielle Moody, Brian Karam. It was so good to see you guys. Let's keep doing this thing because I don't know. There's stuff to talk about.
A little bit. You got a little bit there. Yeah, that's chaos in a blender, baby, every day.
I think it is worth saying, though, because, again, all of us are like, what do you mean it's been 150 days? That's impossible. Take a break when you need to. I'm also talking to myself. But, we need other things in our lives because otherwise we're going to burn out. And that won't do anybody any good. All right.
Well,
I will
have
be back.
A wonderful granddaughter who's going to be president someday. That's
there you
who
go.
I'm pushing for.
Well, let's make sure Brian's granddaughter can be president someday. Let's make sure that happens.
President Murphy.
I will be back at 6 p.m. Eastern for Mary Trump Live. Do not forget, check out both Danielle and Brian have Substacks. You must check them out. You've got to check out Brian's show. You've got to check out Danielle's YouTube channel. Seriously, support their work. They are phenomenal. Otherwise, they wouldn't be nerds. Okay? It's that simple. All right, guys. I will see you later. In the meantime, everybody, please stay safe and be kind.
Love
Bye.
you both.